Some of them leave because of absolute destitution, a lack of food, a lack of clothing. There's very few jobs. If you were to look inside the average North Korean factory, most of the machinery has been broken apart and sold for food. It's a hand-to-mouth situation inside North Korea. Corruption is becoming absolute rampant. As the political system begins to kind of collapse or crack at various points, it's a real serious lack of everything. And on top of it all, it's a depression and a sense of fear that people, particularly young people, sense that there's no future for them. The North Korean leadership has one priority, and that is to keep itself in power. They're willing that X% of the population are disposable, if necessary, to keep the so-called revolution of North Korea rolling. Really, it is a very bleak situation. Young people sometimes are coming out and simply saying, there's nothing for me in North Korea. And I think in a way that sums it up. There's not only no food, but there's no future.
군 양밀로 가을 되면 다 꿇어 올라간단 말입니다. 몽땅 군대들.
I was a farmer in North Korea. When the harvest comes, the military take all our food. This is a common situation. They don't care about farmers. Whether the harvest was good or bad, we had to steal food to survive. My own mother died because of hunger.
The flight from North Korea into China, it's crossing a river. An area may look to be absolutely deserted, but there may be soldiers in an underground bunker who are watching with binoculars, and they have rifles, and they're taught to shoot to kill.
It was very difficult for us to live in North Korea. We had no food and no fuel. I heard that life in China is better, so I wanted to live in China. I crossed the border with 4 people from the village. It was snowing and we got lost. 2 Chinese men appeared in front of us holding knives. They tied us with ropes and took us to the cave in the mountains. They were traffickers who wanted to sell us. I escaped from North Korea 5 times, and twice I was captured by traffickers. Once a man came to buy me, accompanied by his brothers and sisters. The sisters wanted to see if I could have children. They removed my clothes and examined me. They bought me and took me to their home. In the village, there were 3 other North Korean women. After a week, I managed to escape.
The extent that the North Koreans have to travel once they get into China is almost really of epic proportions. There are cases of some North Koreans walking for the better part of 4 or 5 months to get from the northeastern part of China all the way down to a Chinese border with a Southeast Asian country like Vietnam or Laos or Burma. It's a combination of risks and dangers and frightful outcomes if they happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. It's like a big game of Russian roulette for the North Koreans. Even though China is a signatory of all the human rights instruments of the United Nations, they absolutely disregard them And when they find North Koreans, they send them immediately back to all kinds of punishment and torture inside North Korea. It's a daunting and very daring and risky journey for the North Koreans. It's, in many cases, a life and death decision to leave North Korea. We need to help the people as they exit. The Christian body of Christ has to be there to help, to support, to educate, to love them, to bring them to Christ, and help them in the way that they want to be helped. That to me is absolutely essential.
The refugees from North Korea are usually very frightened, so we help them to be safe. We teach them the Bible. At first they have difficulty understanding, but gradually they receive the gospel.
저는 확실하게 믿고 있는데 하나님이 나를
I strongly believe that God's plan, which called me to China, is to train me and send me back to North Korea to evangelize my people. Even though I may be put in prison or killed, I will go. Once I was arrested and sent back to North Korea, I was put in prison. I suffered forced labor for about 10 months. As an evangelist, when I go back to North Korea, it's very dangerous. A Christian woman was executed due to her faith in Jesus, so I also may be put in prison or put in a political prison camp or killed.
If they're caught by the Chinese and sent back to North Korea, and that would mean almost certain detention in a political prison camp. The political ideology of North Korea, which is really the worship of the leader, they call him the dear leader, Kim Jong-il, and his father, who's now passed away as of 1994, called Kim Il-sung, really has all the earmarks of a religion. So naturally, if you have a one religion state, Christianity as being introduced, whether through the underground church or through returning refugees, will constitute a very, very major challenge to that belief system. That becomes one of the key questions of the Border Patrol. Have you been with Christians? The real church is deeply underground. It is a secretive network. We don't really have an accurate idea of how many. Some people guess 200,000, maybe 400,000. My guess is that when the situation in North Korea finally comes fully to light, we're going to be very surprised that there are more secret believers than we ever imagined. Christians are not allowed to have a Bible. They're not allowed to gather. And if it is revealed that a family is Christian, then not only the one who has committed this state crime would be taken off to a reform institution or a political prison camp, but that individual's children and their parents. So 3 generations. Some people say that it is possibly the most severe Christian persecution that exists in the world. We really urge our brothers and sisters around the world to pray for, one, the safety and integrity of the shelters that are already in existence, that the Lord would keep the Chinese authorities from discovering them. 2, that the Lord would continue to sustain and give the faith, the health, and the perseverance of our precious brethren in bonds. And thirdly, that the Lord would change the policy of the Chinese government to stop repatriating the North Koreans to North Korea and follow its obligations to the international human rights treaties that China is signatory to. The mercantile relationship with China tends to be preeminent And I think as Christians we need to call our governments into account for that and ask, what about the persecuted church? What about repatriated North Korean refugees? What about underground Christian church members in China who have been imprisoned for years or even decades? Pray for resources to continue to help more refugees and to help them in shelters, and also to help them along the Underground Railroad to safety for those who are at the greatest risk.